Founder, CEO of Pharmacanis, a multi-state operator based out of Illinois. I am also the former CEO of Ivic Holdings. One of our entities that I founded and created was New Sierra in Colombia. It's a large-scale CBD THC company, about 6 hectares under cultivation, full organic certified, from seed through drying and milling. We also have a processing facility in Medellin that is full INVIMA cGMP certified as well.
Hello, my name is Tracy Fouts, and I work for Mays Chemical Company. We're a chemical distributor here locally in Indianapolis, as well as we have a facility in Fairfield, New Jersey, and some remote warehouses. But I am more on the raw ingredients that would go into the products that are being, CBD products that are being made, not so much the CBD driven part, but the MCTs, the essential oils. If you're making bath bombs, we've got your sodium bicarbs, but we are definitely a GMP, also SQF certified facility. So we do know about the GMP practices that are going to be discussed here.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Keurig. I'm the CMO from Rogue Origins. We are a hemp farm from Southern Oregon. We specialize in smokable flower. We also do a lot of sales internationally. We focus on GMP practices at the farm, and we use only organic inputs. We've never sprayed any pesticides. We don't want our workers to have to handle that, and we don't want to contaminate the Rogue River, which we pull our water out of. We've been farming hemp since 2016, and we plan on farming hemp for the next 20 years.
Excellent. So to lay a little groundwork, organic shouldn't have a lot of ambiguity involved with it. So maybe if we could just lay the groundwork to what organic means to, let's start with you on the end. So since you have the farm.
Yeah, so I mean, I started farming organically over 20 years ago. I believed in it for multiple reasons. Didn't want to contaminate the groundwater. I grew up in a big ag community where lots of people are inflicted with cancer. And also I wanted to consume my products. Mm-hmm. And so we went on the long, there wasn't exactly a roadmap for farming organically. I mean, lots of people were doing it, but the big guys that were successful weren't open book. Farmers, believe it or not, are a little bit more closed book than they should be. There's a lot less collaboration. I think if farmers got together and collaborated, there's plenty of money on the table. I think it's a little bit of ignorance / greed, but
I would actually say ego.
Yeah.
So not necessarily greed, but ego. It's always my crop versus your crop. See how awesome mine is versus yours. Yeah. And it's the admitting that maybe I'm a little less of a grower or less successful of a grower that actually gets in the way.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned, I agree with that. What I've learned also, or what I've become actually, is an expert bug killer, because it's actually not that hard to grow with horse manure, chicken manure, bat guano, the NPK and the other elements. Farming it is actually easy to farm it organic, but integrated pest management is something that I've actually learned. And because we were doing everything from the ground up, we learned to buy our own inputs and make our own solutions and our own sprays. And then we graduated to backpack sprayers and tractor sprayers and helicopter sprayers. And we tried every way to kill the bugs, because if you don't stay up on your game with bugs with organic inputs, you can, fall behind really fast. And it's not like you can just go in there and, drop a huge, spray and eradicate them. I mean, once you're behind the 8 ball, you're pretty much, you're in trouble.
Yeah. What about some piggyback off of that? So organic to you in a farming sense is very involved in the sense of you can't skip a step. You have to know your steps, and you have to respect those steps. right?
Yeah, and you can, for feeding, I mean, when you're an organic farmer because we do soil tests and then we do leaf tests. So we're testing the product the whole entire cycle because we can anticipate or guess or assume what we need to add. But, by using a little bit of science and a little bit of old school technology, we've come a long way. And the main thing that we've learned is we're not row crop farmers. I mean, it took I'm still not a row crop farmer, but I'm a lot closer than I was, in 2016. We had one tractor we got at an auction for $2,500, and now we have 8 tractors. And, and so we're just, always looking for the next best thing when it comes to organic farming. And I think, with a lot of collaboration with people from Australia and people growing in Colombia, I think if we can, really find a solution, because it all boils down to making money. If we're not making money growing these products and doing these GMP practices, then it's going to fail. Yeah. So, it has to be done in a sustainable way that's good for the workers, good for the farmers, good for the water, good for the fish. And also at the end of the day, allows us to,
It also ultimately has to be good for business. Like you said, with teaming up, that's very good for the economy. To give one of you guys a chance to speak, I would like to let the crowd know so organic to, say, a farmer, it's a very attainable, tangible thing. But say you're in a corporate situation, what does organic farming look like for your?
Organic is organic, and it's regulated by third parties that is recognized by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the FDA. So when it comes to scale, the biggest problem that you have is mitigating your pests, mitigating your weeds at scale. So how we've been able to do this, now we are not certified organic farmers, but we do use organic principles. And so what we do is we increase the volume of plants in the field, a minimum of 150,000 plants per acre. So for a lot of people, that may be kind of a shock. But what we discovered is that if sun hits the soil, then we're growing more weeds than we are hemp. And if there is any sort of a problem, or say a disease and or pests or weeds, we have a greater survivability rate due to the volume in the field. So we can get by without utilizing terrible pesticides and weed control by just letting the plant cast a shadow that creates no sun on soil. So all we get is hemp out in the field. So there goes our weeds. And then the second thing is to mitigate all of the pests that are not in your field. Most of the pests that are coming in most of the pests that will be in your field come from outside. So if you are big agriculture like ourselves, or even in a controlled environment, in his controlled environment, he won't necessarily have pests that come from inside unless it comes into soil or somebody leaves his door open. For us, it's every other farm around us. So the pests will come in. So how we do that is we'd massive amounts of plants in the field. Yes, we're going to get some destruction, but we can usually catch them before we get any sort of a dent in our pocket.
What do you know?
I would add, from the corporate perspective, if you're going to look to go large-scale organic growing, our company, New Sierra, was the first in Colombia to be certified organic, 6 hectares under
12 acres.
So at that scale, to go organic and be the first in country, you don't know what the pesticide situation, what the pest will be, what your integrated pest management will look like, but the bugs will find you. But I would stress to anybody looking to be a producer in organic, it starts from the very beginning. Is your land, was it fallow for 3 years, or was it organic before? If not, you have to wait. Do you have blowover or pesticides from the field next door? There's also, where's your water coming from? Is your water coming from runoff that comes from fields that are not organic? So Colombia is a large producer of cut flowers, tremendous amount of pesticides. So just finding the suitable land was an ordeal. Then you look at your growing, anticipated lower yields, at least when you start, lots of trial and error. We all know growing in the United States of cannabis, indoor environments, they're completely dialed in with very high energy costs, but they're predictable. Well, field growing organic is anything but. The other thing that I would stress to anybody considering going organic, and we made the decision about in 2016, so similar to what's up here at the DS, it's that every single step has to be organic. That means your seeds and your clones have to come from a nursery that are organic. Your veg, your flowering, organic. Your milling, your processing facility has to be certified organic. We use CO2 extraction. You may say CO2 is not a hydrocarbon. Can it be certified organic? It cannot be. So we can't say our oil is 100% organic, even though our flour is. Then finally, your bottler has to be certified organic. If you don't bottle yourself, you'll have more cost. So at every single step in the chain, it's more cost. We think it's worthwhile for the reasons you've heard here, but I think you have to really analyze those things carefully. There's very few people that are doing 100% certified. We're certified by a third-party agency called MyAssert. If you want to sell EU into Europe, well, then you have to be certified EU. You have to find a company that will come and certify you to those standards. In cannabis and hemp, that can be very difficult for anybody not wanting to even touch you. So if you look at the people that are truly labeled certified organic, you will not find many in the marketplace today. They cannot get every single element in that chain. I would say to all of you, there's those opportunities though. Maybe you can fit in the chain and be organic for one of those components. I think there's great need out there for that.
So I think that's a good segue. Maybe you could explain, so somebody who can't be all the way organic, maybe you could explain some of these certified good manufacturing processes.
Well, one of the things in our facility, basically, we're a chemical distributor, so we're going to be totally, I'm not going to say totally opposite because we want to be organic and we want to go with where the consumer is going with the trend or in natural stuff is in right now. So it kind of like affects us in a way because we sell so many chemicals that can help in the process that takes it out of organic. So that's why when they were saying that you have to get every layer and make sure every layer is organic, and that's how you're 100%, because you can't say you're organic and the first thing you use is one chemical element to get a process done to get to your end product. Then that's what takes it out of the organic. So they're better to speak on organic because I'm more of the person that will help you if you can't get to organic necessary
those good
way.
manufacturing processes.
We will make sure we have good manufacturing processes on the quality of materials that we do provide you. So
So that's
and that's
an
what
important
GMP
thing.
is. Good manufacturing processes, the minimum you can do for your facility and whatever you're producing to make sure that the integrity of your product is going to be consumable for the end user. And that's the biggest thing. Anything that's going to be put into your body, that's where you want the GMP practices to happen. You don't want to walk into a warehouse and see someone eating and trash on top of the products that are going to be used in your manufacturing process. So those are where the good manufacturing process comes in, and you can have quality products, not organic, and still be in that realm of good manufacturing practices.
I think that's a good point that people need to understand, is that just because you're not organic does not mean that it's open season on, not adhering to any type of regulation. That's not at all the case. And in fact, the case being is that cGMP is often a settling point to where somebody has to get to because they don't have the upfront costs necessary or the time necessary involved with going organic. So having, cGMP is just that next step that you can say, hey, I'm taking these integral steps to make sure that my product is something that I would give my own family,
So when you look at the issue of GMP and organics, to me, I think they fall within the issue of quality. And quality, that's consumer perception, differentiating your product, but it also has to do with risk. If you're a small scale producer, selling 100 products a week, 1,000 products a week, there's not massive risk. But as you move up to numbers, then you have issues of massive recall, product liability. GMP helps make sure you're okay with that. In today's world, I don't know if consumers are willing to pay a premium for organic. I don't see many GMP products on the market.
In hemp specifically,
In hemp
I would
specifically,
agree.
yeah.
Yes.
So, but we think it's coming. It's why we invested in it. It's what we believe in. But I'm not so sure if consumers are currently willing to pay a premium. With the labeling issues as it is, I think you probably see lots of use of the USDA organic logo on products that's not really certified and permissive. Yeah. But I believe, and I think my guests have never heard the table things, these are the right things to do. Yeah. On the liability stand front, GMP cost a lot of money to get a facility up and running and then certified. And it's kind of the same issue. You have to bring a government regulator in to look and see if your facility complies. We spent $5-6 million perpetuating facility in Colombia for GMP. The biggest issue we had was that the bathrooms were in the wrong location. They were as people were walking down a certain path, they were clean and they were then crossing over the pathway where quote, dirty people walked. That's the specificity you're dealing with GMP. But I think ultimately the FDA is signaling, especially when it comes to CBD products, they're moving into no health claims, or eventually we'll see that adapt, but it's going to be required to be manufactured in GMP facilities.
I would say, as from the corporate aspect of it, GMP actually is your liability mitigator. So because there is a chain of custody, because you can report it, because it is acknowledged if someone does get sick for whatever reason, or there is some fault somewhere, they can track that chain all the way back. It may come back to you, and it may stop at a manufacturer, but the point is the government wants to know who gets sued. The second thing is that your insurance company wants to know the same thing. So if you're insuring your products, they're going to want to know the chain of custody. So each and every at every point of that your product flows should be GMP'd, and if they are GMP certified, some find it to be more of guidelines and gray area than they do black and white. We try to utilize those that respect the black and white writings of the GMP protocols. And so essentially, if something does go wrong, which we haven't had anything go wrong, but if something does go wrong, we can trace it back. It's super important, especially when you're getting started. Nothing would suck worse than having $10,000 to $50,000 in revenue and being sued for several $1 million.
If you're a distributor or white label, if you're a distributor looking for white label services, or have a brand looking for white label services, I think looking for a GMP producer and or organic, if that's what you're after, I would stress very highly, especially if you're looking at large volumes.
And if you look at GMP, I'm so sorry. If you look at GMP from a flow perspective, and you overlay that with organics, or from organic farming all the way through, and you just look at the principles that are laid out there, you can see where your product goes if you are truly looking to get a organic certification on your product. So if you just overlay GMP on top of your organic certs, or as we got into organics, I can't think of anything that was missing. So pretty much you can just overlay it, and it's a template that you can follow if that communicates.
And if you're buying from someone, you can also find out what kind of certifications that they have for their facility on the products that you're getting. Like, we are definitely do the GMP, but we are also SQF. SQF is big in food. We sell to big food corporations like your Kellogg's and your General Mills, and we sell pharmaceuticals. So we're going to make sure that we cover the whole gamut on traceability, because every different market has a different level of traceability that they want. If you're going to consume a product, you want the traceability down to a T, because you want to know where that breakdown has happened if anything is to be recalled. So you're in your gummies and your tinctures and all those, you want to make sure and ensure if you are getting any outside products or getting products from a manufacturer, that their facility is going to be as up to par as the quality products that you want on your end product that's going to the consumers. And you can get that. They will have to show you all their certifications, and if there's any incidents, you can go trace back. If there's any incidents in a facility that have happened negatively, they have to report those as well to you. So there's a reporting piece to good manufacturing practices as well. So if you want to know where that facility stands, you can ask those questions.
Yeah, I believe personally that the GMP traceability factor and everybody keeping data and lot numbers and all that, it's really important. That's probably the most important part for me about GMP, because we're trying to create consumer confidence in a brand new industry. So we can't make claims, even though we all know that cannabis helps out with a lot of conditions. If there is no standardization and there is no quality control, it's actually going to have negative impacts on the movement that we're trying to create. So, we can't expect farmers to practice good GMP when it comes to wanting to farm, because farmers want to have the biggest crop they can have. And a lot of times farmers cheat, like in a lot of industries. So, for us personally, we did it in the beginning because we felt like it was right. And then we're going to continue to carry it on because we want to create a brand that has consumer confidence. So when they go to the store and they buy the product and they're like, oh, well, we took that product and it worked really good the first time and took it again. I don't know if I have a tolerance or if the product just wasn't made under GMC certification. So, all of this is important as we go moving into an industry that is, brand new. We're learning, we started farming hemp like corn farmers, right? Because we didn't know it was monkey see, monkey do. And now, we have become row crop farmers with a lot of studying and asking questions and literally going and spying. We were in Salinas last week and we're spying on these guys with automated cultivators because he talks about planting high density. So he's planting over 100,000 plants per acre. It's smart. Then you go through and cut the ones you don't want out, right? So we do a little different method. We do about 2,000 plants per acre, but then we go through and we plant on GPS and then we use cultivators to kill the weeds. And we even bought a flamethrower that burns the row. So, we're trying everything under the sun, and every year it's a different pest, like the last 2 years, it's been the aphid. They're calling it the hemp. They're calling it the hemp aphid. It's just the aphid, but people like to put new names on it. The aphid's been around for millions of years, and it's a really smart bug. It'll actually grow wings, and the next batch of eggs will have wings and fly away. So, they're pretty, bugs are been around a lot longer than we have. And so, it's us against them, and, we're going to win.
And especially after hearing that great description, what I would say to anybody about organic, and I haven't tried other products, but I'm sure if you can search out and get true organic CBD that's processed right, if you haven't had it before, then you probably haven't had true CBD. Full spectrum in that environment when it's grown right. We've been experimenting planting peanuts in between our plants to put nitrogen back in, and I don't know, do something else above my pay grade. But the quality is absolutely there, and while consumers may not really understand it yet because of hemp oil, seed oil, and everything else that's going on in the space, isolate, I think eventually consumers will understand what these products are about.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, go on. I was actually going to move into an organic part of the discussion where people are able to either field questions or, anything that you have on your mind, please direct towards.
I think for us, what I would like to hear from each of you, if possible, is what are the 3 most important ideas, concepts, or something you want to communicate that will help with our marketing. So you all mentioned that consumers may not be willing to pay. Consumers don't understand. So what are the 3 things we need to be telling consumers of how important it is to be USDA organic or whatever?
I could touch just to get it started off in Minnesota, for example. If you are organic, and then on top of that, we have a seal for a local seal. So locally produced on top of organic in Minnesota, hands down, gets the best premium. And for consumers, the reason that's a selling point is because it brings the family into the corporate part and then back into the home where the products ultimately end up. So there's an assumption, like you were saying earlier with hemp, there's an assumption with people that they may think that just because it's hemp, it's produced organically. And that's not the case because it's associated that when cannabis is grown, there's shoeless hippies walking around.
Well, it goes even farther though. Like he mentioned before, so hemp will actually remediate the soil. So if you plant hemp in a toxic soil environment, it's actually going to pull those heavy metals from the ground. So it's actually excellent for cleaning up bad soil, but you have to turn that into something like, fiber for hempcrete. You cannot use that product for anything medicinal or edible. So
that's a selling point as well. Multiple uses for the same crop within an organic system.
And as far as educating people and inspiring them to make the extra cost, I don't think you should purchase any medicine that's not growing under GMP organic certification. That's my personal opinion. I've been farming organically for 25 years. Everybody made fun of me 25 years ago. They were like, what are you doing? You're not getting an extra premium. You're spending more money on your pest management. You're spending more money on your inputs. And I said, I don't really care. I can still make a small profit at the farmers markets. I can still sell this to my local restaurants and make a small profit. And we weren't making a lot of money. I mean, we weren't driving fancy air-conditioned GPS tractors like we have now, but we were making it happen.
Air conditioning? Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
So from my perspective, there was a study that came out early, just before the CBD apocalypse, right? So just before COVID hit. There was a study that came out. I'm going to screw up. I can't remember what college did it, but they made the statement that 76% of consumers of cannabinoids, or CBD, were actually already in the cannabis space. So they already were playing inside of, whether it be recreational in those states that were recreational, or where it was where you required a license to consume for medicinal purposes. So that's 76% of the market, right? So of those that are consuming, not of 350 million people in the United States, right? So that leaves 24% of those that actually consume are actually people outside of the industry. So the secret is to tap on them. So a couple things that we have observed that has worked with us very, very well is, one, the GMP practices, 100%. Now, when we're talking certifications, that is like base level. So that's an entry level job, is GMP. Super, super important, and it's not everything. So there are other certifications that actually will have you stand out. So for instance, ISO 9000. ATIs. Get to know these acronyms. The facilities that actually produce your raw material and or manufacture for you, that is going to give you an edge in the market. Why? The reason why is because we'll talk about international market because that's what I play in the most. So US GMP is recognized by nearly the rest of the world. So you're good there. So, and your manufacturer or the ones that's producing your raw materials is already covering that cost. So you already have that edge. One thing that we didn't do in the United States was create some form of standardization, right? As hemp farmers, as hemp growers, we're looking to do that as we go along, but there wasn't a standardization. So every country requires different levels of THC. The goal is to get the THC levels low enough to be globally compliant, right? So then therefore, if you're doing direct to consumer, then they can just go straight to your website and they can buy it and it's legal in their country, air quotes, right? There's always something in the way, but typically it can be. So that's children, I can barely grow them, but I can go to a racetrack. So I say horsepower. So more horsepower, the better. Now, there's a lot of people that will argue with me. However, we're dealing with consumers who are not educated or inside of our industry. So by giving them high quality, clean, that's what ISO 9000 gives you as a pharmaceutical grade CBD, clean, and a horsepower, something they can feel. If they don't feel it within 20 minutes, they're probably not going to use it again, right? And inside of the competition of where you can go to Circle K's, 7-Elevens, I was just in I was in Dallas, Fort Worth, and they were right there in 7-Elevens. In Phoenix, Arizona, where I came from yesterday, it was in Circle K's. Now, the milligrams are very, very low. It's cheap garbage. But that's what the consumers have access to. And before the CBD apocalypse, there was 3,300 brands in the United States for CBD. 3,300 brands. How many still survive? I don't know. 4. No, I'm just kidding. So how many survived? We don't know. But that is the volume of competition. So the third thing that I'll say is don't get caught up in your brand look or colors. Produce a quality product and just get it out there. Make sure you have insurance, make sure it's GMP, make sure it's got all the certifications, and get it out there. And that's really it. It's an old school hustle. You have to do it.
For us on the consumer side, we boil it down very simply. We look at full spectrum. We think that's ultimately most important. 2, single source. You have to know where it's coming from. Otherwise, you could be getting stuff from China, from Eastern Europe, who knows. And then finally, organic. I appreciate very much, especially because we're here today talking about organic and GMP and safety. U.S. consumers expect hydrocarbon, but it's probably too much detailed. To us, those three things say it all. Full spectrum, single source, organic. You're then in premium category. If you go look at the exhibit class here, ask those three questions, and you'll see what the answer is to most of them. So that's where we stood.
And you're trying to get visibility of your product. You want to know how you get that product out there. You get the product out there, and it will speak for itself. Once people are able to try it and consume it, it'll sell itself. This market is so huge. It'll sell itself.
Especially-
There'll be favorites that everyone has, and that's why everyone up here is allowed to survive right now.
Yeah.
That because there's so many consumers out there who want to try it, which means flavors can be out there all day long, just like Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's, and all those other ones, Sonic. You got a whole bunch of hamburger places, but you have ones that everyone always wants to go to. And yours may be McDonald's, yours may be Sonic, but someone's going to keep on going to it if they like your product. So you don't have to do much in the way of advertising because it advertises itself. Someone will say, "Oh my God, have you tried? Oh my God, have you tried?" And then that will start your snowball effect of your brand getting out there and your brand gaining some momentum behind it. Is definitely, what did you guys do? Sample it out. Just say, don't be afraid to sample it out, because that is how you get, and then they will come back if they like that quality product. But knowing that you've made a quality product, that you're GMP or ISO, and I know some people go ISO. There's so many different kinds of certifications out there. It's really what will work for your facility best to cover the overall gamut of what you're trying to do. And that's what we did. That's why we went with SQF. We were ISO, but we know that it's tighter spec to go SQF. So why go ISO when we can get a tighter guidelines in there, because we do sell food and pharmaceutical. That immediately draws it in really tight, because you have to be able to trace everything that you're going to sell to a consumer out there in an end product, so they know what to do if a recall happens, what to do if someone gets sick from the product, what to do. This is the immediate things that they are able to go back and trace to gain it quicker than they have in the past. And we know that sometimes it trickles down. Now they'll be able to get a hold of it real quick, real fast. Within 24 hours, you could probably stop something from being sold, manufactured, or if it's been recalled. And those are the things that you would need to know and want to know.
You have anything to add to it?
No, I think she's
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, here you go.
So I work for a company in Southern Indiana. We're an extraction facility called hemp-derived, and we are USDA certified organic, cGMP. And what we have found is a good method for us to ensure that, our biomass producer and farmer in Colorado is adhering to the same standards that we adhere to. They're applying the same standards to what they do as we do in our own facility, and that checks and balances is huge. As a farmer, do you welcome that?
Oh yeah, we're totally open book, even to our stores, not necessarily even our partners, but yeah, I mean we have nothing to hide, and I think consumer confidence and brand loyalty and all that kind of come and play together. And if we're creating a brand and we're creating medicine, I mean, if we're not an open book, then how is that going to help, inspire our consumers to come back? I think, he mentioned something earlier about having lower yields, initially with organics. And yeah, you have to put more inputs, you have to have good soil. We have probably 200 acres, but we only farm 100 of it. Not because we couldn't farm more, but we picked the best ground. We picked the best water. Our water comes right out of the Rogue Valley River. So vegetables and flowers, they're 80% water, right? So you got to know all these inputs are really important. And at the end of the day, a few good customers will tell a few other good customers, and word of mouth is better than any Facebook ad or any social media I've ever tried.
And I think that you agree that people will come to your farm whether you want them to or not. So they'll show up, they'll walk through. We had some teenagers lose their way inside of our crop. We had some teenagers steal the top, the colas off of our plants, and then the sheriff stops them, and then the sheriff brings it back, and they're like, "What do you want us to do with this?"
Throw it away.
Throw it away. But yeah, so yes, but come out to the farms. We're 100%, and please ask permission. And every farmer typically is come on board, come on, take a look. The smells, the different strains, it's a fantastic experience. Whether you spend 15 minutes or an hour and a half out there, it's worth it. Most farmers they welcome you on there. So yeah, give it a whirl.
Now, are you talking more like an audit, though? I feel like you're talking about the audit of a facility to make sure that they are up to par with what they say. If they say that they're certified, if I go into that facility and I walk through that facility, am I going to find that their warehouse workers are eating in the warehouse and drinking in the warehouse, which is not acceptable if you're going to do a GMP practice. So really you have the right to audit any facility that is selling you product. And it could be a third-party audit or it could be a direct audit. And then whatever, you usually do have to set it up with the manufacturer you're trying to go into. But it's definitely an option that everyone should take. If you can get and audit the facilities that you are using to buy your materials, you do that. You want to go visit them. You want to see them. You want to make sure that when you go on there, they've got a clean facility. They've got, signs up that tell you, you have to wash your hands. I mean, seriously, as small as making sure that when you go into a bathroom that there's a sign that says, wash your hands when you leave this bathroom. Those things are important because that is going to tell you how that facility operates, that they don't take anything. That's what a GMP Yes, or anything because you don't want nasty in your product. You just don't want nasty in your product.
We go through various forms of supplier verifications. In Colombia, we have no issue with it. We're in turn doing our own audits of our suppliers. I think in a GMP chain, I think it's pretty standard. A lot in this industry, though, are not quite frankly used to it. They won't quite know. That alone, I think, is probably going to tell you something about them.
So to follow up to both of those statements, if you go in and audit one of the spots within your supply chain, we source our biomass and whatnot, and you find that they're doing something that does not adhere to the cGMP standards that they are currently supposed to be adhering to, what do you, as the buyer of that service or product, what leverage do you have to ensure that they get themselves back on track?
Do a second audit, number one. After you've addressed it with them and given them time to redo where they failed, because an audit is just that. You are telling them you did not pass this, you did not pass this, and in order for me to stay with you as a customer, I need these things taken care of. They have to take care of them or they can lose you as a customer.
Yeah,
That's the biggest thing.
That's a big question. It's a very serious question. And okay, it's one thing to say that the employee didn't wash their hands or something. I mean, but you could have rework, revalidation. You could have return shipments. I mean, you have a lot of issues. Those are really serious. For the most part, a facility that's gone through the trouble of getting cGMP certification out of compliance, but getting something that has a major issue that causes an area to be contaminated, that whole supply may be gone or has to go back for rework, revalidation. Those are, we have our own regulatory team that deals with those issues, but I know they're very serious.
Yeah, they actually allow for what's known as a corrective action plan or CAP. And so if there are complaints, like if you were the one that sourced that complaint, then they actually have to correct that. And hopefully it's before they produce any product or anything like that, or a finished good or something like that. Hopefully it was caught early enough. Then they submit what's known as a CAP or a corrective action plan. They make those corrections, and then they essentially are audited, and then they pass or fail.
So he's talking about nonconformance. So the CAPA is from the nonconformance that he's talking about. So if you went into the facility and it wasn't the way that you wanted, you can immediately do a nonconformance on them and say they did not conform. They told you that they would, but they did not, and point those out. I mean, that happens all the time. It could be something simple and minor to a major noncompliance, and you are able to address all those with anybody that you are spending your money with.
And what you're seeing in today's supply chain, and I I think this is one of the next big things that's happening, is that if you have survived and you're here and running, to relying on one source of supply for your key ingredients, it just doesn't fly anymore. Being on shelf space, being consistent are really critical things. The price has already dropped to where it's at. So now people are competing on the other factors. That's the economies of these type of markets. So looking for one single source of supply, everybody should be looking to diversify. And that way, if you do have a corrective action plan or a rework or some revalidation has to occur, at least your supply is guaranteed. I don't think people gave a lot of thought to that in prior years, but we're seeing that that's ever more critical.
Agreed. We do come into that space for a number of different clients of ours where they've had issues with their primary supplier, and we've been able to step in and make sure that their process isn't slowed up or bottlenecked because they now have to kind of re-audit their primary, which was why I asked the question, like, what kind of
Second sources are always good. So an alternative source to your main one is always going to happen. The problem with that is that the one that's waiting for the backup one that's waiting for the first one so they can get a chance at it, that's sometimes hard when you have second source and you're not kind of utilizing them both. So you have to be looking all the time. Sometimes you even have to rotate. Say you're going to do 70% with your main person, but you're always going to throw that 30% to the second source so they know that you're there and you're still wanting them to stay with you and that you're not just, that's just waiting. So sometimes you can split that and give the majority to your main source and just at least give something to keep them on board.
Well, you're in a tough position though, being an extractor, right? So you could switch to another farm or producer that has good standards, but let's say they just bought a new piece of land, right? So, well, no, let's say the land was fallow, but just for your own safety and, what I would do, I would buy a sample from that farm and I would turn it into oil, because from my little bit of experience with selling my biomass to oil manufacturers, ours always tested clean because we never cheated. But there's a lot of people that cheat, or they buy land that didn't get full disclosure on what was growing there previously. And so what we found was that the biomass would test clean. But then when they converted it to oil and retested the oil, because now the parts per million are concentrated, that the oil would fail. So time and time again, people would commend me, your oil always tests clean. I'm glad you're so honest. But I've seen time and time again, not necessarily everyone is doing it intentionally, but people that have good practices can still make mistakes, cannot do their due diligence on their land purchase, not do enough soil tests, and something can go wrong. So before you switch to your new supplier and make a huge purchase, make a small initial purchase, run it all the way to oil, test the oil, and then go from there.
And we're also doing things called sample conformity, rather than just conformity with a spec, which we do, obviously. We ship a small sample that can be then tested by your third-party lab or your lab, and then we'll guarantee that our
a greenhouse and then moving them outside. If you're doing clones, they don't have a taproot. So when we do seed to soil, what is above, so is below. So our hemp plants will get 15 feet tall, and that also means there's a taproot about 15 feet deep. Most soil samples happen about 12 inches. And in a rare occasion, you can do 36 inches. However, if 15 feet down, that's a really really long way to go. So there are devils down there that we just don't know about. So yes, test, retest, and verify, and test again. And then when you're in doubt, test again. And when you're sure,
the term for that is bicropping, where you use a legume and a taproot, and they seek out different nutrient zones and benefit each other with different endophytes and saprophytes on the plant.
Regarding oil extraction related to organic certification or just quality organic process. So the gentleman who works at the company who is currently certified, I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name, but you brought up at the beginning, yes, sir. Yeah, you brought up at the beginning that you guys use CO2 as a process, and that's kind of like moving towards the industry standard, but you also mentioned that the oil wasn't certified because you're using that process. And my question is, what was it about that process that they may have had issues with or that you guys are working through?
The issue, so our oil is, let's say our seeds, our plants are certified 100% organic hemp. Our oil is just organic, and that's because of the CO2 extraction. CO2 extraction, and this is just complete layman terms. There's actually a reason why, but the CO2 as a non-organic substance being used to do the extraction means it's not capable of being certified 100% organic. So we're just certified organic after we extract. But then the bottler, we bottle ourselves in Columbia. Every step in the process, you have to use facility certified.
All right, and then just one other final follow-up question for the other panelists. If you could each speak about the method of extraction that you're using and why you selected it. What were the positive, what were the decision points that made you say we're going to go this route or the other?
Sure. So we do high volume, as I stated before. So high volume requires, it's not something that we can utilize CO2 for, just too slow. So we actually have our own in-field technology to extract in the field to crude. So we don't have a drying procedure or anything like that you may have heard of. We dump it right into our machine and it goes to winterized decarbohydroxylated crude. Right, grown on my farm, by my seeds, by my crew, processed by our equipment, and then we take it to a certified facility that has all the licenses, and then they take it to our finished good. Our finished goods are based upon what the customer wants. Some customers like for instance in Poland, they want it to be, butane or what did you utilize? Sorry,
Propane.
Ethanol or propane.
Cold ethanol.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Anyways, and then others they don't. For instance, we utilize water in the field, so that's what they want. They just want it. It's extracted with water. We use a PEF system, so we soak it in a bath, shock the snot out of it, and then it releases all the cannabinoids. But it's in water, so some want it that way. Some want it extracted by ethanol, just because that's what labs are used to. So they can recover the ethanol. Then they can take our crude, use ethanol, and get to their finished good. It just really depends.
You can reuse ethanol too, and I think that's the reason why you can keep on reusing that. Isn't that one of the processes you can?
So in the field, in order for us to transport it, because of the DEA getting involved, and we have had some team members arrested. So a simple traffic stop turns into a criminal defense case. So what we do is we take our crude, because crude it's hot, right? So it's generally around 2.4% to 3.1% in THC. And so what we do is we dilute 10 to 1 in ethanol. The reason why we use ethanol is because it's what most labs are used to. So then they can recover the fuel and send it to an end product that they actually choose. I took up too much time. Go ahead.
Sure.
So for us, we organic mission, we're very much about the plant, its essence, full spectrum, entourage effect. We understand very well the bottlenecks of CO2 production, the cost, expense, lack of throughput. We think it just delivers a crazy high quality product that we love personally and enamored with. And so and we think that's a niche. We look at market prices too for crude. We don't sell crude. And so our product stream and where we're going with our products demand that organic CO2 extraction, full spectrum. There's something also interesting about, we haven't talked about it, but I think organic terroir matters. Certainly the gentleman's farm here, I'm sure it's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. He talks about the water, the land. Ours is like that as well. It is blue skies, mountainous, spring fed. It is the most beautiful place in the world. Other than I spent a lot of time in Australia. Australia's the most beautiful place in the world. It's God's country. It's where you could grow pure product, clean product that most people just haven't experienced. And for us, CO2, that extraction, even with its cost and hindrances, we have certain cost benefits of running in a place like Columbia as well. So we can make a very price competitive product coming out of that market that is true premium.
Cool.
Yeah.
We don't extract anything. We give it to a friend of ours who, Earthy Now, he uses organic corn ethanol. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you never. I don't have a story to tell on this.
Yeah, so we're just flower producers at this point. We just grow. We're just going to keep our head down and farm the best flower we can, and give our biomass to nice people like this.
Sometimes that's the best to it.
Yeah, stop by. I mean, I just.
I think it sounds very complicated. It really does. Like if we're talking about from organic farming to certifications and chain of custody, it really comes down to just get your butt out there. If you are going to farm, get your butt out there and get it. If you're not going to farm, get after it in farming. If you're not going to farm, if you're going to purchase, whether it be white label or source the raw materials yourself to produce your own goods, just make sure that you're checking the boxes of everything that we've talked about with their certifications, and that's really what you need. And just when it comes down to the way that it's extracted, for a vast majority of the consumers, they could give a crap. They have no idea what you're talking about. And as far as everyone is concerned, I grow a lot of weed. Right, so millions of pounds of sticky icky buds, right? And the only definition is they're the same plant, except for this one is sure that that the people that you're working with are certified, and just get after it. There is so much money to be made still in this industry. It seems like things are, from a wholesale perspective, we're getting beat up. From a retail perspective, the doggone prices haven't moved. So if they haven't moved, get out there, get knee to knee, and get selling. That's really the secret to this whole thing. You can make a lot of money in real estate, right? But if you're not out there hustling the streets, you're not going to make that money. But we all know that we can make that money in real estate. Same thing in this industry. If you don't get out there and hustle, make sure that you're sells 1 to 2 a month, and somebody who sells 1 to 5 a day is just that simple hustle.
Are there any more questions or anything? We'll get to the closing remarks. Probably had one more question you guys could maybe flesh out for before we break here. What types of things do you see coming of people seeking these cGMP or organic certifications? If more people, so to say, jump on the bandwagon, what do you guys see as the quote unquote nirvana?
I don't think most people will be able to get to GMP. There's a certain size and scale that you need in order to justify that investment.
Or applied, yeah.
So there's going to be a consolidation coming for those that can move to GMP, and then displace those that are not regulatory compliant, whether it's GMP or on whatever comes down the pike on Delta 8 and CBD from the FDA.
Lawsuits? I'm just kidding.
But I would say, but if you are not of the size that can get a GMP facility, you best be running it like you are a GMP facility. You need to traceability and everything, no matter what. Small or large, if something.
Yeah, we're already seeing the consolidation now, right? So those that don't have the certifications, they're moving from just taking from the green biomass material to, let's say, crude, which is its first state of extraction. And then from there, they're utilizing, whether it be through strategic partnerships or a separate contract that is from customer to a lab that actually has those certifications to get that crude from its state that it's in to whatever finished good. We're already seeing that consolidation. There was a report that came out in Hemp Daily about 3 months ago, making the statement that somewhere around 38% of processors are moving to that model, and then the remaining percentages are dying. So I don't know how accurate that is. I just found it to be very, very interesting that we're already seeing the consolidation. It's about time. And they don't have a farm, I tend to get very violent inside. And so because we're on the tail end of that, COVID was COVID sucks, and the cerveza virus gave us the cleanser that got rid of all of those charlatans. And they're quick to tell you that they have certifications or that they don't. So it's easier to expose those in the market that could do your product harm.
Well said.
Is that it? Okay, I think we are rounding about our time here. I don't want to hold anybody past that. If there aren't any further remarks, I think we can break here.
All right.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.